Hi everyone, Omaris here. Today we're checking if Windows 3.1 can run on an AMD Zen 5 CPU, on bare metal of course. So let's follow the instructions. And yes, my copy happens to be in Spanish, but everything is pretty clear. 1. Introduzca este disquete en la unidad A. 2. Escriba instalar y presione entrar. Now, using a USB floppy might sound like an issue, but it's not. Even on USB, it's still drive A as far as DOS is concerned. A bigger concern was this, let's call them backup floppies, which seems to have been written back in 1992, right around the time Windows 3.1 originally came out. But the floppies held up fine. 3M was a premium brand after all. The 2 megabytes thing was just a marketing trick. That's the unformatted capacity no one actually cares about. The actual usable space is only 1.44 megabytes as usual. Either way, except for some graphical glitches, which are common for Windows 3X and 9X on modern hardware, but will go away once we install the video drivers. The installation went through with no issues, which is exactly what you'd expect at this stage. The problems start when we try to launch Windows 3.1. By default it boots into enhanced mode and immediately crashes. Now Windows 3.1 actually has two modes, standard and enhanced. Standard was aimed at 286 computers, which were still pretty common in 1992. But the real deal was enhanced mode. That's where you got better performance, virtual memory and proper multitasking, thanks to features introduced with 386 CPUs. Anyway, when used on modern hardware, standard mode is simply more compatible, since it's much closer to DOS than anything else. In fact, this is how I got Windows 3.1 running for the first time on this AM5 system. So yes, it works. At this point the graphics were still glitchy, but remember, we're not using any extra drivers or patches yet. So it's just Windows 3.1 running on a Ryzen 9 PC in standard mode. The next step was to install the VBESVGA driver by PlumMGMK, which I've already shown here, but we'll take another look in a moment because everything is just much better now, especially when it comes to modern GPU compatibility. And my god, the updated VBESVGA driver even worked with a GeForce 5060 Ti. This was completely unexpected. Last time I showed you this driver, it was very picky with NVIDIA cards. Well, now this 5060 Ti isn't a dream card for DOS, definitely not the most compatible. But with the VBESVGA driver, it's still very usable in Windows 3.1. So basically we can dig up a box of floppies from 1992 and just install Windows 3.1 on a brand new PC with the latest CPU and GPU and even get a full HD experience. I just love when PCs are this insane backward compatible, but I can't settle for standard mode. I really want to run Windows 3.1 in enhanced mode. Technically speaking, enhanced mode is indeed advanced, with stuff like virtual memory, preemptive multitasking for DOS apps and much more. But first of all, the PCI sound card I have only works in enhanced mode, and I can't really enjoy Windows 3.1 without sound. So what's stopping us from going into enhanced mode? Well, on modern hardware most of the time enhanced mode just crashes, either with a blinking cursor or it freezes during the splash screen. And the main problem is actually related to the SATA controllers. When Windows 3.1 runs in enhanced mode, it relies on something called virtual DMA, and this feature simply has a buggy implementation of modern AHCI firmware. To fix this, we need the AHCI Fix 386 patch made by PlumMGMK. Yes, the same guy who made the VBESVGA driver. Here's a dedicated video about AHCI Fix, but long story short, we copy AHCI Fix 386 file into the Windows/System folder and then load it through systemini under 386ENH section. Now, if AHCI Fix doesn't work, we can use a separate SATA controller instead. because those come with their own firmware, which actually works as it should. And indeed, now we're running in enhanced mode in Full HD with the beta version of VBESVGA driver. Just a quick refresher, this is a driver that can interface with VESA BIOS extensions or VBE and lets Windows 3.1 run at high resolutions and color modes. So yes, we can go Full HD in Windows 3.1 as long as that mode is available through VESA. Modern GPUs usually support it, but some older GPUs that can do Full HD or even higher in Windows with proper drivers, like my NVIDIA 7900GS, usually go up to 1280 by 1024 in VESA modes. Last time I covered the VBESVGA driver, it was only at version 0.3, a rough pre-release but still very usable. The biggest difference you'll notice now is that those tiny glitches that used to randomly show up when moving windows or icons around are completely gone, and known software issues like solitaire crashing on startup have also been fixed. One of the bigger additions is DCI support, which stands for Display Control Interface. This basically allows programs like XING MPEG Player to access video memory on the GPU directly, bypassing the Windows GDI. And yes, while XING MPEG Player was completely broken in earlier versions, now it works fine. It can even play video CDs, and everything is smooth, unless we go into full screen. So yeah, everything looks good, no more glitches, solitaire and a bunch of other programs and games now work. We have good video playback, and the driver now even comes with an installer that picks the best available resolution. What can I say, it took only 44 releases to get here. That's a lot of work, and it's still in beta, so PlumMGMK is not done yet. Now in the end, let's talk about sound, because I got asked a lot how I got audio working. Well, I'm using a PCI sound card that has drivers for Windows 3.1. It's an Ensoniq PCI Audio 3000 with an ES3070 chip. This isn't the only PCI card with Windows 3.1 drivers, but it's the only one I know that actually works on modern hardware. The good part is that this card comes with its own PCI driver that scans the bus and always finds the card. Literally, it works every time. The bad part is that only works with Ensoniq made cards. Similar cards from Creative, even though they use basically the same rebranded chip, are ignored by the Windows 3.1 driver, and those were made in huge numbers and are much easier to find. Anyway, the Creative cards can still be used with a third-party driver by Wattler's World. It's not as smooth as the original driver, but it gets the job done, although there is no MIDI support. On the other hand, the original Ensoniq card has decent MIDI implementation, and the output in general is not bad at all. Let's just hear this MP3. I'm not sure you're ready for this, but let's do it anyway.
I'm a rest in the lab, it's a brand new day. AM5 on the bench, Windows 3.1. They said it's impossible, I said we'll see. ZEN 5 meets 91, that's history. Modern GPU, ancient OS, full HD colors. Who would have guessed back in the day you had to choose your fight? More colors or more pixels, never both at night. But there's a new driver fresh off GitHub, VBESVGA. Now we're raising the bar, there's a BIOS extension, standardized and clean. Sharpest Windows 3.1 you have ever seen. All the booting up the past.
Also, I got asked if I'm using a Calmira. Of course, Calmira is a big deal. It basically makes Windows 3.1 look like Windows 95 or even Windows XP if we want. I used it back in the day, but now I prefer the simpler interface of Windows 3.1. If you want Calmira along with pretty much all the Windows 3.1 patches and other goodies in one package, there is an all-in-one ISO called Windows 3.1 Update Script. I'll put a link in the description. That's it for today. So, in conclusion, Windows 3.1 does work on modern hardware. If you want to install it, just make a bootable DOS FAT16 partition and keep it simple. I used Windows 95A boot floppy for this. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, I really appreciate it. Also consider joining my Patreon page, you'll find all the drivers used in this video there, including the one for creative cards, which is kinda hard to find now. Amores out.